Well, hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Pilot Parallel. Now, I've actually owned a Pilot Parallel, four of them, for a number of years, and I've just never done a video on them because they're weird. So, how weird? Well, they're very specialized pens, and as I think you'll see, they're not the typical pen I buy or use. So, let's dive into it. So these are the Pilot Parallel. This is a long pen. I have my camera as fully zoomed out as I can, and it can't quite capture their full length. For comparison, I don't have a normal pen laying here, but I do have a Reform pen. So yeah, these are long. So the Pilot Parallel is different. It has four different caps because there's four different nibs. That's it, four different nibs. So we're going to take a look at one and just call it representative of the rest. So I'm going to grab the blue one. This is a 6mm nib. Here we have a 3.8, here we have a 2.4 and a 1.5. So conveniently, they all have their nib size written on the cap. Open it up. You see a feed. In my case, kind of clogged with glitter because I have a sparkly Girbon ink in it. The nib itself is different from your typical fountain pen. It's two plates of metal pressed together, and it's serrated. I'm not sure what the serration does, but there you go. Open it up further. These pens do take the Con 40 converter. You cannot fit the Con 70 into this. As long as the barrel is, it just doesn't fit. But these are pens for writing calligraphy. I don't do calligraphy. We'll address that at the end. But that's a very decorative form of writing. I do... Okay, so I'm shaking it because of the glitter. I do cursive. This is about as... This one's a little too large. This is the 1.5mm. It's a little too large for comfortable regular writing. So the Pilot Parallel really is just for specialized writing. So let's see what it looks like when it writes. To do so, we'll use this black and red notebook. I'll just warn you, I have two inks you're about to see, so saddle up. Okay, so I'm going to start with the smallest one. This is the Pilot Parallel 1.5mm. So of course it's called the Pilot Parallel because the nib is two pieces of metal slapped together. So the first pen we're going to do is the 1.5mm. I will just name the inks at the end, but this is Girbon, the gray one, Stormy Gray. So when we look at some curly cues, they're going to get less and less able to be confined by the lines on this page. But you definitely get a big difference between the horizontal and vertical strokes. As far as my oblique test, it is what it is. A wet enough pen. Fairly pleasant for demonstrating. Let's just do a quick Peer Gustafson test. I'm not sure how I'll do with all of them, but I'm going to do my best. The biggest thing where I fall apart is I will sometimes twist the pen as I'm writing, and then it doesn't write well. Now these are sparkly inks in all these pens. So hopefully you can see that. Alright, so we're going to jump up a size. to the 2.4 millimeter. This one does not have Stormy Gray in it, so I'm shaking it up because it's still a sparkly ink. This is too big for regular writing, and I'm probably going to have to offline a bit. So 2.4 millimeter. This is Emerald of Chivor, Emerald of Chivor. And as you can see, you have to write big, because especially the Chivor part just looks awful. So we'll do some swoopy doodles, down strokes, oblique test, and let's do a Peer Gustafson test. Yeah, rapid writing, we're not keeping up anymore. So you have to write somewhat slowly and more deliberately once you get above the 1.5 millimeter. Then we have the 3.8 millimeter nib. So we'll shake up the sparkles. Yeah, I have to write bigger. So again, this is Emerald of Chivor. Ugh. And our swoopy doodles. This test, see, I got to writing too fast there. So we'll try to do better this time. Oops. Again, too fast. And that demonstrated as it gets bigger, it gets harder to maintain that angle. I know this is going to fail the Peer Gustafson test. Yeah, that just was pointless. And finally, my 6 millimeter nib. This is big, and I have to write slow. So we're back to the Stormy Gray. We'll just abbreviate. Some swoopy doodles. Have to go slow. Huge contrast here. So if you know calligraphy, oh geez, you probably didn't see most of that. I apologize, but I'm not doing a second take. But anyway, you can see a big difference between the horizontal and vertical strokes. As far as the oblique test, clearly not. And finally, the world-famous Peer Gustafson test, which it will fail spectacularly. Yeah. Now, as much as this pen fails the Peer Gustafson test, you don't write calligraphy quickly. In fact, if my memory is correct, Peer Gustafson himself owns a set of Pilot Parallels. This is a great pen for calligraphy, I'm told. Don't know firsthand because I don't do calligraphy. I don't have the patience for that. But it can make, if you are willing to take the time, it can make, a special message like happy birthday look special. This page isn't really super wide, so let's use the slightly narrower 3.8 millimeter, and let's just write a quick happy birthday. So you can see a few times I started going too fast, like there. Here, I might have actually just gotten a bad angle. Here and here. You know, it's not... Oh, and I think the nib is getting full of sparkles, so it probably needs to have its nib, or have it... Oh, geez, what just happened? Yeah. So easy to take apart and clean, but what I was about to say, because I was going to show you that at the end. What I was about to say is sometimes when it's being naughty, I just turn the knob here and force more ink into the nib. I've only ever had one ink ever clog it, and it was a De Atramentis, what was it? De Atramentis something. It was supposed to be a coppery green. And it got to the point where, yeah, the pens were totally clogged and useless. But anyway, I hope that was interesting. Hope it was useful. And let's go back to my face. So that was the Pilot Parallel, 4 of them. You got to see nibs ranging from 6 millimeters down to 1.5 millimeters. 1.5 millimeters, I discovered years ago when I discovered stub nibs, is a little bit too big to use for regular writing. I don't even like to use it, to show off my writing or my inks. I found when I bought stub nibs, the biggest I wanted was a 1.1 millimeter stub nib. That was about the upper limit for regular writing. 1.5 was just too big. You had to write big, and just didn't look good. Or did it? So, obviously, there's a reason I have these. So, I'm not a calligrapher. I've been accused of writing in calligraphy by several of my colleagues, students, people at random. Oh, I love that letter you wrote in calligraphy. No, I didn't write you a thank you letter in calligraphy. I wrote it in cursive. But we're at a point now where people don't always recognize cursive, and cursive is special. So I can't speak to how good these pens are for a calligrapher, but I do know that they make my cursive writing look really special. You get the really broad downstrokes and the really thin horizontal strokes, and that looks good. Sometimes it takes a little bit of careful holding to use one of these pens, especially the 6 millimeter pen. But it does look good. So, complaints? Yeah, I've got a few. One thing I don't like, they're sort of difficult to clean out. I also discovered it's really easy to pull the nib and feed out just by wiping it off. A lot of the sparkly inks sometimes will get clogged in these pens, and I have other pens that don't. And, I'm not a huge fan of sparkly inks. I don't like to put them in my expensive pens. But they are kind of fun once in a while, so that's why I own some. I'm trying to use them up right now, but on the whole, these are specialized pens that I'll get out for like weddings, graduation, holidays, those kinds of things. And the rest of the time, these pens sit safely. But if you want that writing experience, the nice thing about the Pilot Parallels, it's fairly low cost, and you can fit the Pilot's Con 40 converter in, and probably their Con 20, I haven't tried that, and be fairly satisfied with them. So I hope that was interesting. I hope it was useful. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.